Hello, welcome back to another very exciting episode of Sit and See. I'm Dr. Jared Jones. My research specialty is ancient systems of meditation, in particular Buddhism, and a little bit of Taoism. I've also studied the cognitive science of meditation and a great deal of Buddhist philosophy. I've spent the last 20 years as a practicing Buddhist and also trained in pretty traditional Buddhist environments in addition to my academic credentials. And I'm on a mission, as many of you already know, to try to make meditation accessible to lay people living in the real world. And the meditation style that I teach is non sectarian, so it should, I think, and hope and intend fit into any type of practice that you're doing, even if it's entirely secular or indeed perhaps even opposed to my own philosophical or religious views. So, having said all of that, welcome everyone. Welcome, Cleric. Thank you for being here. Thank you for moderating once again. I'm excited to say I'm about, I think, halfway through the next video for the Buddhist PhD Responds series, and I just got a text from my friend Neil Ripsky about the first interview that we'll have on the channel. Also, I've been in contact with a couple of different people. I'm going to start making rounds on speaking circuits. So there's a university in India that would like me to speak, and there are a couple of podcasts that would like me to speak. And so I'm going to be making my way around, and those videos, at least in part, will probably end up on the channel as well at some point for those of you who are interested. Yeah, I took a screenshot of that because my wife said I can buy a new camera when I get to 2000, and she didn't realize that was going to be in 48 hours. But I wanted to get a camera for the setup that would be capable of doing 4K. This one peaks out at 1080. In any case, like I have said before, thanks to the generous donations of the community, we are... Hello, Astrali. Welcome. Thanks to generous donations from the community, we are now getting fairly close to fully upgraded, fully operational. I have a proper professional studio mic coming. It'll be here by the beginning of next month. We have a lapel mic that's pretty good for standing and walking meditation. The laptop we're on now is pretty decent streaming and gaming laptop, capable of handling whatever you throw at it in terms of video editing and streaming. So, my goodness, thank you all for your confidence in what I'm doing, and I'm really pleased to find that some of what I think is beneficial to the community, and that you're willing to support me in doing this, because there's nothing else I want to do. Australia asks if I'm Buddhist. Yes, I am. I'm a Buddhist. I've been practicing Buddhism for about 20 years. So in this class, a little bit different than the open Q&A, I do my best to try to keep us on one particular topic. I try to keep us on the topic of your personal daily meditation practice. Barak has returned. If I recall, the last time Barak was here, he became either a stream enter or an arahant. I can't remember which is pretty phenomenal. I didn't know a president, one president of the United States was going to be joining. So those of you who wonder why I'm droning on at this point, I usually hang out and just chat with folks and let them ask their questions for the first 20 minutes or so while people are joining, and then we do our practice. And if there's time, I do a little bit of Q&A after. But for those of you who are hoping that I'm going to go live again today and do a long Q&A, I will not. I'm going to be editing and so forth. So today is a no live Q&A day. It'll be just a meditation Q&A only. So Astrali, yes, please do ask your questions. I'm happy to answer. But like I said, try to, for this session at least, keep it focused on your own personal practice, your daily meditation stuff, things you're struggling with, things you need advice on to make things work better, that sort of thing. So that, for me, is a bit more of a theoretical question, and I'm hoping, if possible, if you have questions about your personal daily practice, if you're sitting every day and you're having trouble with some aspect of what's actually going on with your daily struggle with your mind in terms of training and meditation, those are the kinds of questions I try to do in this session. In the open Q&A, I do whatever people want, basically, as long as it's connected to Buddhism. But since it's your first day, I think I'll go ahead and answer it for you. So from a Buddhist standpoint, there are two major schools that have opinions on that very thing. One of them is called the Middle Way or Madhyamaka school. The other is called the Chittamatra or Yogacara school, often translated into English as mind only. And even though that school is called mind only, and even though the Madhyamakas say that you have an the thing that's knowing reality and the thing that's being known have an interdependent relationship, they don't say actually that all of reality is just a projection of your consciousness, and certainly not just a projection of your ego. There is a real world out there, and you need to treat it as such, or your life will become pretty chaotic. If you think nothing is real, or that it's all a dream or a hallucination or an illusion, you're not going to be very motivated to do stuff in the real world. What would be the point? And this isn't actually something the Buddha taught, although you do find statements like that. That's a type of rhetorical tool to try to break you free from the habitual way in which you see the world and interact with the world in a way that's mistaken. When you actually look at middle way or Yogacara thought more systematically, you find that the position's actually more conservative than that. There is a world. It's not just your mind. It's not all in your head. It's not just a projection of you. But the aspect of the world that you get to interact with can't be pulled apart from you. So this is an important point. There's a world, but the only part that you get to interact with is interdependent with your consciousness. So it's not all your consciousness, but the room you're sitting in, even according to modern cognitive science, not just Buddhist weirdos, is your mind. You're not sitting in the room. There is a room. Physically, you are located in the room, but every aspect of the experience you have of that room is significantly coming from your side. Very significant. And there are fun little experiments that they've devised in cognitive science to show this to you, to prove this to you in short order. There's a video I'm going to do a commentary of eventually where they got a group of cognitive scientists together who all specialized in each one of them in one of the 5 external senses. And they were just talking about all of these weird things that they found out in research. And basically, the way that your senses construct your experience is really extraordinary. And the things that it leaves out and the things that it adds are also extraordinary. So what the Buddha says in general is that you have a cognitive error, that your mind makes a mistake, a few mistakes actually, when you see reality. And that through training and concentration, first you can pull back a lot of obvious stuff that's not true, because that's just conceptual stuff in your head. And then you're stuck with perception. And in perception, there's already cognitive errors, which is why concentration alone is not good enough. The way that you see it, the way that you know it before you've thought anything is also mistaken. No, it's okay. It's okay. I'm just waiting for people to come in. And if another question comes up for someone's practice, I'll divert over to that. So in order to transform this problem, the Buddha prescribed 3 main things. He said, first, you need to be ethical. as my teacher used to say, be a gentleman, be a gentlewoman, be a real person before you try to be a saint. Just try to, you know, as my wife likes to say sometimes, just don't be a dick, you know? So first you need ethics. Ethics is going to stop you from hurting a lot of people and hurting yourself, even when you really want to do something that hurts other people or hurts yourself. It'll also train you in the basic cognitive skills you need to do meditation. So ethics has two pretty major functions. In a spiritual sense, you could say also, you're cultivating good karma and so forth, and that'll help if you believe in rebirth, and it'll help even if you don't believe in rebirth, believe it or not. So the next is you need training concentration, because your mind is running around like crazy. It's like a drunken wild elephant, they say in the text sometimes. It's just running all over the place, and you have no ability to make it go where you want or stay where you want. You're mostly driven by past impulse, preference, habits coming from the past, your immediate reaction and thought when some situation happens drives what you do, rather than making free decisions. And so you need concentration to cut through the previous habits and the previous mental activity that comes up immediately when you experience anything. And then once you can cut through the bias and these habits and instincts and so forth, then you can start to analyze the nature of your being. You can analyze the nature of your consciousness, analyze the nature of your body, analyze the nature of what appears in terms of external objects and so forth. And through this analysis, combined with intense concentration, free from your ordinary bias, you can finally cut through these cognitive errors that the Buddha says are your primary problem. And all of that is open to both reason and direct experience. So you don't have to take the Buddha's word for it. You can actually look at your mind and see where your negative mental states come from. And once you have sort of studied enough and looked at yourself enough, at least in my experience, and I have some students who are Eastern Orthodox and Jewish and a whole bunch of other things. And even them, when I've taught them how to just look and see, what do you find when you look? Even my Eastern Orthodox student is like talking to me about Buddhist emptiness and selflessness, So, in brief, that's the whole process, if you want to put it in a nutshell. Now, if you really want to start meditating, Advaita Vedanta is wonderful. They have a really good, in my understanding, really good meditation programs. Some Advaita Vedanta schools, as far as I can tell, also try to incorporate some of the Buddhist wisdom aspect, which is that third thing we were talking about. And in fact, some of the other Hindu schools sometimes say that some of those Advaita schools maybe are actually Buddhism in disguise because they're doing this. So, it kind of depends on where you are. So in terms of training in meditation as a beginner, we're going to do some of that today. Where people go wrong quite often is they try to sit for very long periods of time, and they end up sitting in very bad states of concentration. And their body hurts a lot, and they're not actually focusing, and they're not actually building up the skills that they could be building up at their current level of capability. So instead, they're just sitting there for a long time, suffering. And of course, after a few months, they quit. Why wouldn't you? It doesn't work. And some people have a lot of determination, so they'll do that for years. But, one of my students in particular said she had been meditating 30 years doing other stuff and was pretty determined about it, and made more progress with my techniques in 6 months than she had in the previous 30 years. And it's just because meditation is a real thing, and it relies on having certain cognitive skills and putting them in a certain order. And if you don't do that, it doesn't happen. Kamalashila is a great Indian Buddhist saint and scholar. He wrote, if you don't use the right techniques of meditation and you're trying to accomplish meditation, it's like trying to get milk out of a cow's horn. You could milk its horn for 1,000 years and you're not going to get any milk. So it's not just a matter of determination, it's a matter of grabbing the udder instead of the horn. And unfortunately, most of the techniques that I see being taught pretty widely these days, to me, and I'm just some guy on the internet, and um, I'm not anything special, but at least to me, it seems like this is grabbing the horn. It's the wrong technique at the wrong time in a huge number of cases. Okay. So, Justin, to begin training in meditation, 5 minutes a day, 5 minutes, and you can gain the first 2 stages of meditative concentration. I guarantee it. I'll put my stamp of guarantor on that promise. 5 minutes is all it takes. So it's a matter of doing 5 minutes with the right technique that addresses the problems you have as a beginner. And then once you have the first couple of skills that you need to meditate, then moving on to the next technique as a layperson living in the real world, not someone who's going to be in retreat 8 hours a day, but as a real person, moving on to the next technique that actually addresses the next problem you have as you move on to the third and fourth stages of meditation. I love you guys. You're really too much. Osho, someone in the chat says, "What do I think of Osho?" I'm not sure, but again, this is not a. If you can, try as best you can to keep it just focused on your daily practice. If we get too many people asking questions about a lot of other things, then it's hard for people to get their advice on their actual practice. I do open Q&As, as some of you know, and I'm happy to go for 5 hours or 5.5 hours to answer everyone's questions. But for this, we need to keep it tight. Okay, so since we have some beginners here and people who are new, why don't, for those of you who are here, if you've done other things, that's fine. If you've done other kinds of practice and other kinds of breath practice in particular, that's fine. But try my technique today, and we'll do 3 short sessions of my technique. And just see for yourself if this technique doesn't get you a better quality of mind than the other techniques you've tried. And then I was going to do some walking meditation. We might get there, we might not, but then we'll do the second technique after you have a decent quality of mind. We'll do the second technique in the way that I teach. And we'll see if we can't get your concentration deeper than it's been in the past. And if we can't, that's, fine. But I suspect that with these techniques, if you do what I ask and don't just kind of do whatever you've learned in the past from other people, then you'll see some progress even today. Because again, meditation is a set of cognitive skills. It's being able to get your mind to do what you want it to do, when you want it to do it, for as long as you want it to do that particular thing. And to develop that, there's a whole bunch of things that really help. Okay. Right. Let's actually get into the practice. Okay, let me answer those 2 questions very quickly. In my understanding of the first jhana, it's simply being able to keep yourself on the task for the most part, so that most of your mental activity and most of your attention is directed at the object. So if I'm correct in that understanding, if the first jhana is directed thought, as the name implies, then you're going to accomplish that probably in, not very long using the first technique, because the first technique demands you put every bit of your thought and intent into the object, right? And then the second technique is sort of a hack where you're learning to use body scanning to deepen your concentration. And since the problem you're going to have in the beginning is that you get really bored if you sit for a long time trying to do one thing, body scanning is brilliant because you get to do a whole bunch of things without stopping. So you can stay in the activity longer while also deepening concentration and also calming down the nervous system before you transition over to objects where you're just going to sit with the object. So develop the basic skill, make the concentration deeper, then rest on an object after that, after you've gotten rid of the first or made progress against the first two parts. Okay, the other question is, should you extend your practice only when it feels relatively easy to do? Not necessarily. It depends on the technique. We'll circle back to that, Artie, if you don't mind. But it depends on a lot of things. If you're in retreat, yeah, go for it. If it's every day, you want to stop when you hit about 80% of your capability. And when it feels easy to do, if you're using the wrong techniques and you just sort of get used to sitting there not doing much and your mind's floating around all over the place and it's slightly calmer than it normally is, that's not actually doing that much. And so what's more important than anything is the quality of what you're doing and knowing exactly what you're accomplishing, exactly what you're doing with each technique. This is another big issue. People don't know what to use each technique of meditation for. They just think, well, if I just stay on my breath forever, I'll gain the accomplishment. And that's not true. You could do that in retreat. You know, if you're doing it 10 hours a day, you could use virtually any object you want. But in real life, you have to be more skillful than this because you don't have much time and your mind is a mess. This is my opinion. And it seems so far that the people that are using these techniques and doing this, and the people that have been with me for 3 or 4 years doing this, are making real progress. So, and it's worked for me. Okay, so let's actually do some practice. So I'm going to teach the first technique, and then we're going to do a body scan. And then we might do a little bit of standing for the folks who have been around a while. But I promised my wife I would be finished at 9:45, so I'm not allowed to go over, or I'll get a beating. Okay. So the first technique I call intensive breath meditation. If you read the Bhavanakrama, which is a great text on meditation by the Indian saint Kamalashila, and if you read the commentaries on this text that have emerged in the Tibetan tradition, what you find is that that meditation occurs or unfolds, your ability to meditate unfolds over a series of 9 different stages. The first 2 stages, the primary problem you have is that you can't get your mind to the activity. You can't even get to the activity that is meditation. And then once you're in the actual activity of meditating, you can't keep it there. Your mind immediately jumps off to something else. So these are the first 2 problems you have on the first 2 stages of meditation. So how do you overcome this? Say the great sages, the cave-dwelling yogis and incredible scholars of these subjects from the last 1,300 years. They say you have to use extremely forceful attention, as if your life depends upon it, as if you're going to be killed if you don't keep your mind on the object. And I'm not being hyperbolic. I'm not exaggerating. This is what they say. And if you do this, if you put 100% of your being as if this really matters into the activity, then in 5 minutes you can actually make a little bit of progress against the initial 2 problems you have in meditation. And then having made a little progress, you're actually going to start gaining the skills. You're going to start gaining the skills of the basics of meditation. I can put my mind where I want, and I can keep it there for a little while. These are the basic skills, right? So since your mind is going to try to run away immediately, you need more than just the breath to keep you on task. Because the breath alone, you'll run off and you won't even notice that you ran off. You won't know how long you've been gone. So this is why my teachers recommend at the beginning you add counting. You count the breath. Because as soon as when you notice you've lost your focus on the breath, The counting will give you more feedback on how long you've been gone, how far you've strayed from the activity, and so forth. So the counting is really important, even though we're only doing 5 minutes of practice. So in brief, the instructions are: breathe in just at a normal pace. I recommend actually closing your eyes, even though there are techniques where you open your eyes, because that'll allow you to get more of your attention into the tactile sensations in your body. So close your eyes. Just breathe in at a normal pace through the nose. Now you're going to find that one of your nostrils, inside the nostril somewhere, you feel more sensations than anywhere else inside your nose when you're breathing in. So wherever that patch of skin is inside the nostril, that's where you're going to focus your attention. And besides the numbers, you're not going to imagine anything. You're not going to say anything in your head. You're not going to visualize anything. You're not going to imagine anything. You're not going to label anything. Your entire purpose in life for 5 minutes, the only thing you have to do is keep your awareness, your actual awareness, on the sensations you feel on that patch of skin. And if you can do that, then you will have accomplished the first couple stages of meditation. But since you're not going to be able to do that, you need something that's going to remind you when you've lost it and how long you've been gone. So we're going to add on counting. The technique my teacher gave me for counting gives you maximum feedback on how long and how terribly you've lost the object of meditation. So his technique is like this. You count from 1 to 7 and 7 back down to 0. The reason being that keeping the duration of your count short gives you more feedback on whether or not you're staying on task or you're falling off the task. So even though we're going to only do 5 minutes, count from 1 to 7, 7 to 0. For most of you, it'll be around 3 rounds of breathing, 3 rounds. When you get to 0, you're allowed to move a little bit if you need to. Other than that, absolutely every ounce of your being should be on that patch of skin. Ignore your body, ignore your senses, ignore your thoughts. And the only time that you're going to come off the breath partially is when you count. And when you count, visualize the number 1, for example, in front of you, and say the number 1 loudly in your mind. So you'll breathe in, breathe out. When you get to the end of the out breath, 1. And you see the number 1 here in front of you, visualized, and you say the number 1 loudly in your head. Doesn't matter how clear the visualization is, as long as you have some kind of vague number 1 there, and so on and so forth. Finally, if you can't visualize, if you're one of those people, then just say the numbers loudly and forcefully in your mind. Okay? So we're going to begin. Hopefully that's enough instructions. So just breathe in at a natural pace. Don't try to control the breath. When you find that patch of skin, as soon, and I mean as soon, the moment that I say begin, I want you to place every bit that you have to put into it on that patch of skin, as if it really matters, as if everything is riding on this. Okay? 1, 2, 3, begin. Don't bring your mind fully out. Keep 20 or 30% of your mind just sort of generally in the area of the nose. If you need to move a little bit to loosen off the body, you can do that, but don't come fully out of concentration. Take a little break, and then we're going to do another session. Okay. Bring the mind back to the breath. Find the patch of skin. It may have moved, which is fine. And then bring, once again, as if your life depends upon it, 1,000% of your being to that patch of skin, using the counting to help you notice when you've lost the activity. 3, 2, 1, begin. Take another short break. Keep 20 or 30% of your mind in the general vicinity of the object. So we're going to do one more half session of the breath and then transition straight from the breath into a body scan to increase concentration. So start again with the breath. 100%, 1,000%, as if your life depends upon it. As if you're betting everything you own on this action. As they say in Zen, one breath, one life. 3, 2, 1, begin. Straight from the breath, move your awareness down with the same quality. You're not visualizing, you're not imagining, you're not trying to figure anything out, you're not labeling things with words, you're simply becoming aware of the physical sensations you can actually feel, the tactile sensations you can actually feel in the body. So when I mention each part of the body, simply feel what's there. If you can't feel anything there, don't be frustrated. Just be aware that you're not feeling anything in that part of the body. Okay? Place your mind in the left foot. Left ankle. The lower part of your left calf. The upper part of your left calf. Left knee. Lower half of your left thigh. And the upper half of your left thigh. And then, as best you're able, bring the mind into the left hip. Now to the right foot. Right ankle. Lower part of your right calf. Upper part of the right calf. Into the right knee. Lower half of your right thigh. And the upper part. Into the hip. Bring the mind to the front of the pelvis. And the back of your pelvis, including the buttocks. Let your awareness find the sacrum, which is the part of your spine that settles between the two hips, and follow it down to your tailbone. When you find your tailbone, squeeze your awareness into the tailbone, much like you did with your breath. From there, now just slide the awareness forward to the anus, perineum, and take a few moments to scan the sexual organ. When you finish the organ, whether you're male or female, come to the tip, the most sensitive point. Move your awareness now to the front of your waist. So that's the area just above your hip, terminating at about an inch above your belly button. And then the back of your waist, same thing, above the level of the hips, but maybe an inch above if you were to draw a diagonal line backwards towards your spine. And then the diaphragm belt in the front. So from the solar plexus down to that place where you stopped your waist. And same thing, let your awareness travel around the sides to the back of the diaphragm belt. Now the front of the chest, not including your collarbones. If you can, try to get underneath your shoulder blades as you go around so that you're only aware of the chest. And become aware of the back of the chest. If you can't get under the shoulder blades, that's okay. Okay, now bring your awareness to the top of your left shoulder. Front, outside, and the back, including that shoulder blade. and then the armpit, bicep, elbow, forearm, wrist, palm and the back of your hand. Quick scan of the fingers, thumb, pointer, middle, ring, pinky, top of your right shoulder, front, side, back, including that shoulder blade, and then the bicep, elbow, forearm, wrist, palm and the back of your hand. Quick scan of the fingers for today, thumb, pointer, middle, ring, pinky. From the pinky, come to the bottom third of your neck. When I say the bottom third of your neck, I mean all of those connections that connect your neck to the upper back and the chest. So that whole cone of tissue going underneath the collarbones and the collarbone area and connecting to the top of the shoulder blades and the top of the chest. Slide the awareness up to the middle third of the neck. And the final third of the neck. If you can, get your mind into the joint between your skull and the neck. The back of your scalp. Left side. Right side. Left ear. Right ear. And your forehead. Left eyebrow. Left eye. Right eyebrow. Right eye. Left cheek, including your temple. Right cheek, including your right temple. Your nose. From the nose, slide down to the upper lip area, so not your top lip, but just the skin above your top lip. And likewise the skin below your bottom lip and also your chin. Bring the awareness now back to the top lip, the actual top lip, and the actual bottom lip. From there, travel inside the mouth to the skin on the insides of your cheeks and lips. If you're able, do a very rapid scan of your teeth one by one. If not, just become aware of the teeth. the roof of your mouth, underneath your tongue, and your tongue. Now from the tip of the tongue, follow the tongue backwards until you get to the throat, and then place your attention on the throat. From the throat, slide your awareness straight up, finally to the top of your scalp, and just become aware of the entire top of your scalp. On the top of your scalp, you might notice that there's one area or two areas that have more sensations, more movement or something. Bring your attention to that area if you have one. Otherwise, just place your attention on the back third of the top of your scalp. Now, while holding your awareness on that point or that area, stretch your awareness down to both hands so that you're aware of 3 places in your body at the same time. Top of the head, left hand, right hand. Stretch your awareness down again from the top of the head to both of your feet so that you're aware of 5 points in the body. Top of the head, left hand, left foot, right foot. And just hold the 5 points. If you find your mind wandering, refresh the 5 points. Top of the head, both hands, both feet. Okay, begin to transition out now. Like we did before, do your best not to just dive out of the meditation. Just release the effort and let your mind come back to the normal condition slowly without rushing. So the first two techniques that I teach are intensive breath meditation, which is what we did for the first 3 sessions. This is meant to address the problem that you have where you can't get your mind to come to the activity that you're trying to do. And this technique works really well for even I know some practitioners that can do an hour and a half or 2 hours of practice a day and still use this technique, because when you have a really good day and you're excited and you can't get your mind back to the object, this technique can pull your mind back into the activity. And likewise, if you have a bad day, since we're real people living in the real world, being able to pull your mind out of whatever's happened and into the activity gets you into the practice. So this is a technique that's both for beginners and for advanced practitioners living in the real world. And then the second technique we did is just a body scanning meditation. The idea with body scanning, of course, is that amongst the techniques that are on offer for people living in the real world, body scanning is absolutely phenomenal because it makes your whole body more calm. It makes your pain, actually, according to cognitive science, it makes pain less painful in the body, whether it's chronic or it's acute. It also calms down your nervous system really, really quickly. So you're able to get a much more stable, much more concentrated mind and a body that's much more comfortable, which therefore will allow you to do more profound types of meditation. And then we began transitioning to the second part of body scanning, which are a couple of different techniques that can allow you to eventually do full body meditation, where the entire body is the object of meditation. And those techniques allow you to take your practice off the cushion and into real life, because you can't follow your breath in real life. And it's quite hard to do a full-on body scan at a high degree of intensity and quality in real life. But while you're walking your dog, or you're going to your car, or you're waiting in line for groceries at the store, you can do full body awareness meditation and no one will even notice. Like right now, if I place my mind on the 5 points, it's firmly established. It doesn't look like I'm doing anything, does it? I'm just sitting here talking to you. But my mind is vibrantly aware of the 5 points that I've just established as a meditation object. So I can keep my mind in an activity that's training my mind with whatever I'm doing. And that means that I can train for hours and hours and hours every day instead of 30 minutes or 2 hours or whatever. Furthermore, if you do retreats, and some of you probably do retreats, you got to have techniques that allow you to bring the retreat accomplishments back into real life. So you need techniques that you can take on the road, so to speak. And the techniques that I teach, as you'll find if you stick around, allow you to take more of what you accomplish in retreat back into real life. Because quite a bit of what you do on retreat is fantastic if you're doing 7 hours or 12 hours or whatever a day, but really tough to get it back into real life. Yeah, body scanning meditation, it can make your whole body feel fantastic, like you just took a shower or something. Like you just took a shower and got a massage, you know? Which is really good, because we did that in 15 minutes. So if you had an hour to practice every day, you do 5 minutes of intensive breath, you do 15 minutes of body scanning, and then you have 20 minutes to do something much more profound in terms of practice. Like some of you maybe do Chan practice or Zen practice, and you want to do just sitting. Well, you do these 2 practices first and then do your just sitting practice. It's going to be much more intense, much more stable, much higher quality. So the techniques I teach also lead into that kind of practice as well, but there are a lot of little extra techniques that you can add on to something like a just sitting practice that can improve the quality of it really dramatically, because you're working on all of the components of a just sitting style meditation individually and making each one of them better, instead of just sitting there and waiting for it all to happen on its own, which again, it will if you have 8 or 12 or 16 hours a day to devote to the practice. But as real people in the real world, very difficult, you know? Okay. Instead of droning on, we have 9 minutes. Otherwise, my wife is going to come in here and bonk me on the head with a on the head with a pot like a cartoon. So, questions? Shadow Buddha asks if the counting is like an anchor. You may have noticed when you're trying to keep the mind on the breath, some of you will feel like your meditation today was worse than it's ever been, which is actually a sign that it's working, because your mind is actually totally nuts all the time. I mean, absolutely out of control all the time. And when you actually get it to contact an object of meditation for a little while, you notice how it's running around and you can't control it. What the counting does is once you've contacted the object, it gives you more feedback on whether or not you're staying on the object. Because if you lose the object and the counting, if you lose the object, it's really hard to know how long you've been gone, how far you've moved off the object, how much of your attention has moved. But if you're counting, you go, the last number I remember is 3, and I remember saying 3 a while ago. Or you go, I have no idea what number I was on. And so you're getting a lot more feedback on how you're doing in the session. And since your big problem is that you lose the object and you don't know how long you've been off the object, adding the counting does a lot if you're working on these first 2 stages of meditation, which most people are. In terms of tactile sensation, also quite a few people in the modern world are really disconnected from their bodies. And if you have any kind of quite a few people are ADHD, or they have, they're on the ASD spectrum or whatever. There's a fair amount of research that says that body awareness types of meditation can really help with all sorts of stuff, all sorts of mental health conditions. It's not fast, of course, but you can make some headway against your conditions through these kinds of training, according to science, not according to some guy on the internet. Altez says it felt like an intense chess match. Yeah, that's right. That means that you're actually training your mind. If it's a struggle, especially in the beginning, then that means you're actually doing something. If you're sitting there going, I need to be nice to myself, just be kind. Oh, you lost the object. Okay. Good luck. I mean, you can do that an hour a day, and it's like Kamala Sheila said, you can milk a cow's horn as long as you want. You're not going to get a single drop of milk out of it. You have to attack the problem that you have first, viciously. And then once that problem becomes less, the next 2 stages of meditation, they don't need as much intensity because the mind stays more where you put it. And since we go to body scanning to deal with stages 3 and 4, where you're trying to increase concentration in terms of duration and intensity and the amount of stability you have, it just sort of happens naturally that the intensity you were putting on the breath becomes a little less, but the quality of mind stays really good. Localita asks, can I meditate while laying? Yeah, you can. The trouble is that, for example, the US military uses body scanning type of practice to help soldiers fall asleep in war zones. So your mind can get very, very, very calm very fast doing body scanning types of meditation. And the tendency will be, if you don't have training in keeping your mind fresh and highly alert and awake, that you'll fall asleep. And if you don't fall asleep, that the mind will become dull. So you can do it, but for most people, because once the mind becomes stable, the next thing that happens is it becomes dull and less discerning. Laying down at that stage of practice is not advisable. Once you can keep your mind stable and highly alert, awake, lucid, fresh, discerning, then you can meditate in whatever position you want. So the first kind of meditation was intensive breath meditation. This is just a term I've come up with. My teacher didn't give me that name for the practice, but my main teacher for 12 years gave me this first practice as a highly effective technique for getting over the initial problems of meditation. Yeah, so for those of you who are interested in a bit more hardcore and more in-depth study of this, I have my school course, my meditation course down below. But before everyone clicks away because they think I'm just here to try to get your money, I actually teach all this for free. So all the same information is already available for free through my YouTube page. So if you go look for the meditation and mindfulness course, you'll find all of the same videos and things there. But in the school course, there's two things going on. One is, as some of you know, I teach all this for free. So the only way I'm able to do that is if I have a certain number of people that are donating and contributing, so that I can keep the lights on. I do this. I don't know, like at least 10 hours a day, sometimes more. So to carry on with that without having to do something else, the community has to support the activity. So people that sign up for the school course, that's a great way to contribute so that you and everyone else can get as much instruction as I'm able to bear. Also, through the school community, I'm going to park my book there and do more detailed, more in-depth study with those people, in particular because I want to build a community of meditators from all traditions, all backgrounds, who want to support each other in doing more intense practice and more intense retreat. So basically the way this would work is once I have about somewhere between 100 and 200 members, over the course of the next 2 to 3 years, we will train, we'll study, we'll do smaller retreats, shorter retreats. And then financially, at that level, when there's 100 or 200 of us, if somebody wants to go into a retreat for a week or 2 weeks or whatever, it's going to be between $5 and $20 between all of us, just chipping in a little bit for somebody to go into retreat for a long period of time. So I'm building that community in the school community for people that are serious about what I'm trying to do and serious about their practice and want to study and train more deeply and support the community in yet another way. Yeah. And in terms of other things, you could sign up for the YouTube membership if you were so inclined, or leave a donation down below. That's what allows me to do all this for free for everyone else. So that's all very much appreciated. In terms of other questions, I've got a few more minutes, just a couple more minutes. I'm sort of rambling while I'm waiting for questions to come in. For those of you who are new, the general structure of what I teach is roughly 4 techniques, roughly speaking, 4 techniques spread out over 5 different foundational skills. So there's intensive breath meditation, there's body scanning, and then there's Mahamudra practice, which is learning how to abide or rest your mind in the nature of your 5 external sense consciousnesses and your mental consciousness, your mind itself. And then there's rumination meditation, which is learning how to reshape what's on the surface of your mind and reshape even attitude, perception, cognition. This is where the rubber meets the road in terms of Buddhist mind training practice. And then I spread those out over 5 different foundations, I call them, because if you're building something, you want a really strong, powerful foundation. The first foundation is getting your mind somewhere and keeping it there, intensive breath. Second is, can you do that while standing or not? Third is, can you do it while moving, right? Can you walk and generate a profound state of concentration or not? If you can't, good luck bringing all this into your real life. And then, can you actually meditate on the nature of your various consciousnesses or not? If you can't, good luck on figuring out who and what you actually are, because you can't look at it directly. And then finally, can you reshape what's on the surface of your mind or not? If you can't, how are you going to transform your mind? So these foundations are what allow you to do, in my opinion, every other type of meditative practice that there is. And I've been around a bit. There's only a couple things that I don't teach, as you guys know. Only a couple things I don't teach, but these techniques will allow you to do those things too. So, are there any Buddhist dogmas that you had to crush your conscience to believe? No, thankfully. Now, I was really pleased over the years to find that I didn't have to distort my conscience to make sense of it all. I was actually able to improve my conscience, make it better than when I started. Do you study the suttas or sutras for meditations, or do they come more? I've studied a lot of different things to develop the meditation, the actual topics of meditation I use. Mainly, actually, at the moment, I rely on the Geluk tradition, which is the main tradition I came up in. They have a wonderful system called Lamrim, Stages of the Path, and it includes all of the various worldviews, attitudes, motivations, and extras, you could say, that are required for you to go from a normal person to nirvana, and then also from nirvana to full-on Buddhist enlightenment. So it's like one little package in a book. You know, they have some versions of it that are very small, but, you know, like a book about this big, and it's the actual meditations and stuff that you need to be able to progress through all of the various mental stuff you need to go down the path. And what they've done is organize all the informations in the sutras into a logical flow of meditative accomplishments and meditative topics. It's really smart. It's really sharp stuff. And then also, if you understand Lamrim, it gives you insight into where all of the suttas and sutras and all of these understandings fit in terms of a training system. Because if you just read the suttas and sutras, it's not organized in that way. It's not organized as a sort of a straightforward training system. Okay, my friends, I wish I could stay longer, but yeah, Lamrim's fantastic. Really is. Let me know. Let me know on the Discord which one you got. Yeah, Lamrim's wonderful. Okay, I must go. I should not disappoint the wifey. Thank you all for being here. Hope to see you again soon. Try not to die before you come back to see me again. All right? Cheers.